from GC 90.7's Studio A on the campus of Gulf Coast State College, RAPLINE with Emily Balazs.
Well, Crime Stoppers is a program involving citizens, the media, and police, all in the fight against crime. And people who have information about crimes can call in their tips anonymously and can even be awarded a cash reward if some of that information leads to an arrest or a conviction. Now, today on RAPLINE, we'll learn more about Panhandle Crime Stoppers and how you can help fight crime here in our area. I'm Emily Balazs. Thanks for joining us here on RAPLINE. And with me, we have Norm Gulkis, who is president of Panhandle Crime Stoppers. Thanks for coming on.
I'm glad to be here. It's an opportunity to help make our community a little bit better.
Great, and we have a lot of questions, going to learn a lot about Crime Stoppers. And of course, someone that many of you recognize, Jerrry Tabatt from Channel 13, and you are vice president of Crime Stoppers.
Yeah, Norm said on public appearances like this, he needs some bookend, so I'm the bookend for him today. But no, this is just an amazing organization. I'm just so happy to be here and talk about it today because it's great.
So just a little bit about both of you now. What inspired you to get involved with Crime Stoppers?
Let me say something about both of us first. Both of us, Jerry and I, are military veterans, and we spent a large part of our earlier lives giving to the country. And both of us are retired, and we're now giving back to our community here. And we got involved to try and make the community a safer place, a better place. The guy that we helped get off the street may be the one that is going to hit my wife on the head in the parking lot. So that's why I got involved with it.
And I had always, being in the media, of course, you know about Crime Stoppers and things like that. Well, then one day, I think it was Norm says, well, why don't you come to one of our meetings? So I came to one of the meetings, and then a couple of weeks later, they approached me and said, well, we'd like you to become one of our Crime Stopper board members. And I thought, well, this is pretty neat. So that's how I got started in it. But like Norm said, I knew what the program was all about because being in the area since 1979, all the billboards and things, you know what it's all about. And when you hear that word, immediately you think law enforcement versus crime. And what it is just our way to supplement law enforcement with an anonymous type system where people have no idea who you are if you should call in one of these tips. And it assists law enforcement, and it keeps this community safe, and it keeps it safer and safer and safer every day.
And of course, you and I being in the media, we know Crime Stoppers 785 tips. That's the anonymous tip line. But for those maybe just moved into the area or don't know about it, what is Crime Stoppers?
Emily, Crime Stoppers is a civilian organization. We're a 501c3, a nonprofit. We're not connected to law enforcement. We're really an agency that solicits information and passes it on to the proper law enforcement agency that it pertains to. A lot of people think that we're law enforcement. There's no way. We are very careful to keep separated from that. The point of the spear is law enforcement. Those are the guys that are the police department, the sheriff's department. But we just try and make their job easier, as Jerry said.
Right. And the thing about it is, too, Emily, a lot of people don't realize this, but Norm and I are not getting paid for this. We are volunteering to help make this community a safer place to live and work and raise our families in. So this is totally volunteer. So you have no salaries or anything to worry about. Whatever money comes in is used to promote Crime Stoppers. So we do have, one paid person. We need someone there.
One paid person administratively, and whether you know it or not that you're part of Crime Stoppers. The third leg of this stool is law enforcement, the civilian organization, and the media. And you're part of the media, and you're the one that helps us get the message out to show people how they can take charge of their community. And they can do things by, if you see it, say something about it.
Right.
You know, it may be like a story I like to tell. A lady saw a truck pulling out. Her next door neighbor, every night he'd leave with an empty pickup truck, you know, at 2 o'clock in the morning. He'd come back about 4 o'clock in the morning. And she couldn't figure it out. And she finally called it in and said, somebody ought to check it. He'd come back with a load of lawnmowers. He was out in the middle of the night stealing lawnmowers and everything. And it's just that it's not to report everything, your neighbor or anything. But if you suspect something is going on, if you don't let somebody know, it's going to keep going on.
So now how how does this work? Say that I have a tip to call in and I call the 785 TIPS number. Where does that go? Who answers it? And how do we know that it's not being passed on to police or whatever? How does it stay anonymous?
First of all, we don't answer the phone here locally. It's answered by a service that I believe the one we have now is over in Texas, right?
In Texas.
And they take the information down. And then immediately upon taking that information down, they have a chain of command where they notify. If it's an immediate law enforcement problem, they will call of course, notify law enforcement immediately. But it all comes down. Norm and I don't even see the tips. We have no idea what these tips are, but it's distributed through the law enforcement channels, and of course, eventually we do find out what they're about, but we have no idea where the call came from. We have no idea who the individual was that submitted that call, so it's not handled locally whatsoever.
The way it works is that Emily, you call a tip in, somebody answers the phone, they said, answer it for Panhandle CrimeStoppers, and you say, I have a tip and blah, 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 this is happening and everything, and they ask you questions that they're very knowledgeable, the people that answer our phones, and they ask you questions and they give you a number. It's a secret number, you're the only one that knows it, and it goes on that paper as a number. And they say, well, if you want more information about this tip as to whether the criminal was caught, you have to call back, and they give you our administrative number. You call our administrative number and you say, I'm 3847Z. And they say, well, we haven't caught anybody yet, we have no action on it, or we have caught the guy and we've authorized a reward of $125. And your next question to me is going to be, how do I not get identified and everything? First, let me say that less than 40% of the people ask for tips. Most of the people want a safer community, but what happens is it will tell you to go to a specific bank drive-through teller window, and you tell the teller, I'm 3847Z, and she'll pass you an envelope with the cash in it and say thank you, and that's the end of it.
Wow.
We have no idea who you are.
And so where does the money for the rewards come from?
That's
the
what we have
hard
to work hard to get.
Yeah. As a nonprofit, raising money is difficult. We run fundraisers. We also have money for a felony case in the state of Florida. If you're accused of a felony and tried, there's a $20 fee put on that trial. It goes through the clerk of the court. The clerk of the court keeps $3 of it. $17 goes to a grant fund, CrimeStopper grant fund in Tallahassee. Tallahassee takes their 8% of it, and the balance of it will come back to us. We have to submit a budget to the penny a year in advance, so we pay the rewards out of pocket first, or what our bank account is, and then we'll get reimbursed later on for our expenses.
So tell me about, as you mentioned, you are a nonprofit like GC 90.7, so you have to do fundraising events. Tell me a little bit about your fundraising and community involvement.
We do. Fundraising is kind of fun. It's a lot of work, but we do it in many different ways. For example, last year we had a Texas Hold'em poker tournament out at Ebro. The proceeds went to us. We did what we call bike and boil with folks out at Harley-Davidson on the beach. The proceeds went to us. So those are the kind of activities that we're involved in. And of course, we ask members of the community if they would like to contribute to CrimeStoppers. They can go online and find out how to do that. So that's the way that we raise our money locally here, and that's how we pay a lot of the bills across the area here.
And we also have a monthly meeting where it's a luncheon meeting, and we invite a lot of people. We'll have 35, 40 people to a luncheon meeting. It's in one of the big rooms at the Sheriff's Department. But one of the things we find is that we don't pay for that luncheon. We have a commercial sponsor for every meeting that we have, and we're booked almost a year ahead right now. And one of the reasons we do that is that people are eager to do that is that one of the donations we got was one of the electronic billboards in town. And for the sponsors to our meeting, they get a slot on that billboard for a whole month also. So those are the things we do. And we scramble for money. We do it just like your station does, any way we can.
And that billboard that Norm is talking about, by the way, is out on 231 and East Avenue. That's the one that was graciously given to Crime Stoppers, and it's been put to good use. You'll see, and I guess we'll talk about the wheel in there, but you'll see some of our most wanted people on that. You'll see public events on that. We put things like Warrior Beach Retreat on that. People want to advertise on that. Then whatever that money is, it comes back in and goes into the Crime Stopper Fund. And a lot of that, too, is like we will buy things and put it in the schools and things of this nature. But all of that has to be documented down to the paper clip that you buy for the state. So it's very tightly controlled, so they know exactly every penny that we bring in. But this community really helps out a lot. They carry us through a lot of rough times out there.
One of the things about the billboard is that we're not in the advertising business. And we lease that to a company that runs it, so they sell commercial advertising on it, but they pay us an annual fee, which is kind of like fundraising, again, that we were talking about. We had a gracious donor that donated us the land and the billboard there, which was amazing, absolutely amazing.
So now tell me a little bit about the history of Crime Stoppers. You said Crime Stoppers is actually a worldwide organization?
Yes.
Actually, it is. It started in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1972. A detective had a murder case that was going. He couldn't get any information, so he went public through the media and said, call in any information you might have on this thing. And he started getting calls on it. And it worked so well that he started an organization called Crime Stoppers. And that worked real good, and it spread from there to national and even international. There are 1,400 Crime Stopper organizations around the world. We think that ours is the best.
Yes, ours is, of course.
But the best is a state organization. 2 years ago, they had competition in different categories, media and everything. And out of the 6 categories, we won 5 of them.
Is that right? Panhandle Crime Stoppers.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you are listening and watching RAPLINE here on GC 90.7 and GCTV. Of course, we're talking about Panhandle Crime Stoppers. My guests are Norm Gulkis and Jerrry Tabatt with the organization. Jerry, you mentioned the wheel.
Yeah.
What is the wheel?
Oh, that's a fun thing that we have. What it is every Monday night, we put like six of our most wanted characters that we get from law enforcement. It could be Walton County, it could be Jackson County, it could be Bay County, Gulf County. There may be one from every county. They're put on that wheel. Then we invite law enforcement or someone connected to law enforcement to come in and spin the wheel. And where it lands, that's the featured criminal of the week. And Amy Hoyt will go ahead and read information about that. We've had it going a little over 3 years now, I believe, and we've actually had, from the wheel alone, 170 arrests made.
Wow.
And it's kind of ironic. We hear things such as, one lady, for example, did not know this, but she was watching Crime Stoppers, and the featured person was her husband who was sitting next to her.
And he was a sexual predator.
And he was a sexual predator. Well, needless to say, she made sure that he didn't leave the house. She called Crime Stoppers, actually called the Sheriff's Department and said, come and get him. So these are the kind of things that are happening with Crime Stoppers. We've also had people that have been featured on Crime Stoppers. They literally go to the nearest local law enforcement agency and says, I'm the one.
They turn themselves in.
They actually turn themselves in. So it's a way that the community can be involved. It's a way for law enforcement to be involved. And like Norm said, the media is so important. And we're very proud at News 13. Terry Cole, our general manager, really supports this. And that's what you need, is the support of the community like this. And it gets the community involved. And we don't know how many tips actually come from that, but we know that we've had 170 arrests already off of it.
It's amazing. I mean, we do have people that turn themselves in, Emily, but the one that I always like best is a grandmother that tried to get her son was on, or her grandson was on the wheel, and he wasn't going to have anything to do with it, and she hog-tied him and delivered him to the sheriff's station.
Yeah. Really?
Really. And we can tell story after story about the effectiveness of the wheel, and it's because people want a safer community. You know, I mean, if you're wanted by the law, then you better face what's going to happen to you. And the reason they turn themselves in, they're afraid if they get picked up or something, they'd be handcuffed, this, that, and the other. But if they go on and turn themselves in, if they're guilty. It's a lot easier that way.
And now you also have a website where people can take a look at some of the most wanted criminals, the people on the wheel, and also I think Rennie Joe's is on the front of that website. I think a reward for
That's
him.
the old website that we have up right now. That was the student that disappeared off the beach.
Yeah. There are three ways you can call it. You can call the number, which everybody remembers, because we've been advertising that for 20, 30 years.
785 tips.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
And you can call, click, or text to get information in. When we're dealing, and I want to lead into another phase here, is that for young people, it's easier for them to pull their phone out and call in a tip. And Jerry's got an amazing program going right now. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a student Crime Stoppers program, and I've had this going now, I guess, about a year and a half. And that was one of the things, when I was asked to be on the board, one of the things that Norm and Deborah Peel said, that, we need to get something done with our young people, get them involved in everything. So when you say young people, with grandkids and everything, I jumped right on it. And we have this Student Crime Stoppers program. Let me back it up just a little bit. They have a program in the school right now, outside of the administrator's office there, glass windows, everybody can see you, and they have this little box out there. Well, now, Emily, if you have something that bothers you, and say you see drugs, guns, or some bullying or something like that, are you going to stand there and write on this and put it in that little box?
Probably be a little self-conscious.
Exactly. And that's why we decided to go with this Student Crime Stoppers, where it's totally anonymous. You could be making a call into the tips line, you could be texting, people will never know. So what the students know, they have this avenue now. Yes, they have the administrators there. Yes, they can talk to them. But we have found out that with the SRDs, the SROs that are in the schools, that line of communication has really opened up, because they realize that we're not there, the law enforcement isn't there to say, I saw you steal that guy's wallet or something. They're there to help guide, teach, and let these kids have this extra avenue. Now, don't get me wrong, the schools are doing a good job, but we're just helping them out a little bit. And it's so easy with today's technology. Crime Stoppers, 785 tips. I mean, how much easier is it for them to do that? So we've got the program going in Bates County School now, in the middle and high schools. Also, we went down and presented this to Gulf County, and Gulf County is along with that now. I mean, we had great response when we went to Weewall and to Port St. Joe. It's a way for these kids to be involved. It's a way for these kids to say, hey, look, this is my school. I'm going to make sure that it's safe in my school. I'm here to learn. I'm not here to be faced with drugs. I'm not here to be faced with weapons. I'm not here to be bullied. Now I have an avenue that is totally anonymous, and I can do that. And that's what makes us feel so good about that.
And one other thing we did is we don't want to go in there and say you've got to have a Crime Stoppers.
Right.
It may, for kids, it may be a bad connotation to them to be involved with something that people think is law enforcement. We, at Jerry's suggestion, we had a meeting at one of the schools. They called us in, by the way, and we kind of set up a trial program with this one school. And I don't know whether you want to mention the name of it or not.
Well, probably not. I mean,
yeah, I don't want to mention it right now because it's still in going there.
Stages.
But we suggested to them, they made it kind of suggestion. We said, well, do it through your student council, your student government. Set up something, call it Safer Community, our community, make our community safe. And you all decide on the name of it. And you all decide on it. Normally, for a student Crime Stopper program, we would say a maximum cash reward, if there was one warranted, of $50. And those kids told us, no, that's too much, knock it down to $20.
Right.
And we'll pay all the rewards in the schools out of pocket. So just by making that suggestion, we know that they bought into it.
Right.
There. And at our meeting yesterday...
Oh, we had one of our student government leaders there. And it's, in fact, I'm going to be going up... this Friday, I'm going to be going up to Bozeman up in northern Bay County, and I'm going to be on their ITV show. I mean, we're going to talk about Crime Stoppers and things. So these schools are definitely interested. These kids want to be in a safe environment. They want to be in a learning environment. And some of the things, this school that we met with, that they told us, I mean, did you know you can now take like a bottle of bottled water, and there's some kind of substance you can pour in it and shake it up. It looks like flavored water. but it's actually a hallucinatory drug. So, I mean, there's so many different ways of what's coming. And one thing that we really have kind of narrowed down is, yes, there's drugs, which you're going to see in school, maybe some weapons, but bullying is really a big problem. Kids can be cruel. And everybody knows the story that we ran on News 13 here about a year ago about this young lady, this young teenager. She was bullied, and finally she went down to this abandoned mine or whatever it was, climbed up on the tower, and jumped to her death because she couldn't take it anymore. Now, with these students having control of their own school like this, there's an avenue for them, and they know they have the support of the community to go along with it. So
We had a girl, we had two students in a meeting we were having about this video we're making for all the schools that Jerry is making. She said, well, we don't really have a lot of bullying or anything at our school, but there's a gang that kids around with other people and does this. And we all looked at her because she didn't understand that gang of kids was bullying kids below them.
Right.
And when we mentioned that, the look on her face, well, yeah, that's what's happening. They're bullying.
So it's education is what it is. And you give these kids today, Emily, they are smart. If you give them the tools, they will run with it, and you'll be surprised what they can do. And that's what we're trying to do with this Student Crime Stoppers. Just kind of guide them along. If they need help, we're there. But it's not Norm's school, it's not my school, it's your school.
So what are some of the questions that the students have as they're getting into the Student Crime Stoppers?
Well, probably the biggest one, and I think this is going to be our biggest obstacle to overcome, is they're afraid of somebody finding out and they're going to be branded a snitch. And that's what bothers them. But with us talking to the individual schools now, they are realizing that this is totally anonymous and nobody's going to find out because, like I said, Norm and I don't even know who did this. And you'd be surprised, and I think we can go ahead and talk about this, of some of the tips that are coming in. We're actually getting license plates on the cars. We're actually getting colors of vehicles. We're getting phone numbers. We're getting addresses. That's how much these kids are buying into the thought that this is my school. It's not going to happen here, and I'm going to do something about it.
Emily, you wouldn't believe one tip we got from a parent of kids in a room with bags of marijuana and money on a bed that they posted on Facebook.
Yeah.
And the parent called in the tip and said, you have to look at this. And that's the kind of stuff that we want to avoid if we can, or stop it.
So what do you both think would be some of the what do you think our viewers and listeners would find surprising about Panhandle Crime Stoppers?
It's totally volunteer.
Yeah. People think that we're paid and got a bunch of people. I'll give you an example, perceptions. Deborah Peel is our branding model. 20 years ago, I decided she looked better than I did. She belongs on the billboard. And she literally has become our branding model. We were in Port St. Joe, Jerry and I and Deborah, speaking at the schools there. And we went out to eat at a McDonald's. I was the only one that got to eat because nobody recognized me. But everybody in that place mobbed Deborah and Jerry to get their autograph. Mm-hmm. And immediately we made up cards with their pictures on their business card with a picture. We were in a meeting with some students the other day and the station manager and everything. And we asked the two young ladies that were there, is there anybody around this table that you would like to be in this video with you? And both girls, different schools, pointed at Deborah, and they thought she was a national brand model.
Okay.
So we're real proud of the job that she's doing, that she is our brand, and we hope that everybody recognizes her and feels comfortable with her. I'm sorry she's not here today, but she really does a lot for Crime Stoppers.
And one of the other things that we've talked about this a lot, Emily, is people do not realize that when a tip comes in that Norm or Deborah or me don't say, okay, I know this guy. Mm-hmm. We have no idea. It's totally anonymous, so they don't have to be afraid of being branded a snitch or somebody find out, you called and you're the one that turned me in. Now, believe it or not, there are some of these tips that come in that have actually been given a chance to get a reward if they want to. But we give them 90 days, and they'll wait until the 89th day because they're afraid that they want to make sure that everything's totally anonymous, and then they'll pick their reward up. So that's that, and what Norm said. And if Deborah and I being in the community, if the kids in the community, the adults in the community recognize us, they know that we have the credibility. And that's what we're proud of, the fact. We have the credibility. We've got a great board. Everybody works hard. It's business leaders around this community that come together, and they have one common goal. That's to make this a safer community. And however we can get it done with the community's help, then that's what we're trying to do.
Again, and you're part of it.
Now, you mentioned that when people call that 785 TIPS, that it's answered in Texas, and as you mentioned, totally anonymous. Do you keep logs on how many calls come in annually to Crime Stoppers?
We know, excuse me, we know exactly. We have a goal of 100 calls a month. Sometimes we're over that, sometimes we're under that. But we're doing, I think last year we were a little over 1,200 tips were called in. And that doesn't mean 1,200 arrests there. They probably, I'm thinking 300 or 400 arrests out of that 1,200 tips there. We may get a tip for Jackson County, Holmes County. We've gotten tips for Polk County or the Orlando area. And we'll get it in. Somebody knows somebody that's wanted down there. They call it in to our number, and then we forward it to the appropriate department there. On last month on our tips, we forwarded tips to 5 other counties that came in on our line. And the reverse happens. We'll get a call from somebody else saying, hey, there's a warrant on this guy in Bay County, and he was picked up down here through a tip that we got through whatever, Polk County Crime Stoppers.
Well, as we're getting ready to wrap up this edition of RAPLINE, what are some final thoughts that you want our listeners and viewers to go away with today about Panhandle Crime Stoppers?
Go ahead, Norm.
If you see something, say something. Call up. You're not going to be identified. You're going to make your community a safer place, and it's for you and your family. If everybody will do that, we'll be a lot safer here.
It's your community. Take charge. You don't have to put up with the violence. You don't have to put up with the drugs. You don't have to put up with the bullying that goes on. It's your community, and with your help, we'll make it safe.
Norm Gulkis and Jerrry Tabatt, thanks so much for coming on and educating us about Crime Stoppers.
You're welcome.
All right, and that is a wrap for this edition of RAPLINE. Again, thanks to my guests with Panhandle Crime Stoppers. RAPLINE, of course, a service of GC 90.7 and Gulf Coast State College. And a reminder, if you're thinking of adding a pet to your family, consider the adoption option. You can always check out our Facebook page for our Pet of the Week. Thanks for listening and watching, and have a great day.